There's some cat paw in the corner of the screen just then.
Hello and welcome back once more to the Single Malt Review. We're going to get off the bourbons for a little while here before we become too Americanised, and we're going to go back to Scotland with this wee little... What is it?
It is a Glentauchers out of Speyside. It's one of the more obscure distilleries, but is nonetheless still quite widely known.
Yes, this is a Gordon and MacPhial bottling one. Gordon and MacPhial bottled version, which is, I think, the most common one of what's still a fairly obscure malt, which we'll crack into here. We have arguably found bugger all searching the internet for details on this one.
From the bottle, we know it is the 1991 distillation, bottled at 43%. No info on what kind of casks were used or even when it was bottled.
Although I was able to find larger versions of that bottle, which sported a bottled in 2007 sticker, which I think they just couldn't be bothered sticking on such a small
tiny
bottle.
So, from what we can tell, it's probably about a 16-year-old.
Very, very likely 16-year-old whiskey here. So
most Glentauchers goes into blends, and the place was mothballed. Some sources say from the 1980s till 1992, curiously, which is a year after this was distilled. So I think even the almighty Wikipedia has some gaps in its knowledge.
Well, they can't both be right, but anyway. So we're dealing with Speyside whiskey, are we?
Yes, we are.
We are, okay. And so it looks fairly Speyside, as much as that meaningless comment has any worth. But
you'd think that a distillery that's 120 years old this year would have more info on its products, out there, but even Gordon and MacPhial, who bottled this particular dram, have little to say on it.
I mean, sadly, that's just the case with a great many distilleries which exist more or less purely to pump out young whiskey for blends and very little else. So, there's just not much on the radar.
We'll be up front. We're going in largely blind here. We believe it's about 16 years old, and beyond that, that's the limit of our knowledge. If you folks in the comments know more, as is often the case, you guys are very, very clued up on a lot of these things. We'll be very keen to hear more, but for now, we're going to give our thoughts based on what we can discern.
So
quite a pale colour.
Yes, indeed. Facetiously, I said it looked like a Speyside, but what's far more meaningful is it really smells like a Speyside. That is some really, really gorgeously typical Speyside whiskey.
Honey, heather.
Yeah, honey, heather, apples, pears. A little bit of sort of stewed fruit, stewed apples, pears.
Little cake, some fruit pudding.
Yeah, and sponge cake as well. This could not be more Speyside in the nose. That's
lovely.
really, really pleasing to see something that fits so neatly into that style. That's really good.
Assuming that 16-year age approximation is correct, then this is quite a pale colour, so I'd assume quite a lot of bourbon.
I'd say one way or the other.
Or
if not 100% bourbon, then probably very, very close.
Some very well refilled sherry too.
A little bit of almonds, a little bit of cashew.
The level of fruitiness speaks to probably some sherry.
Yeah, maybe a tiny bit there. A lot of the fruitiness from Speyside can come purely from the spirit. Because Scotch malt distillate anyway is really, really fruity all on its own. The sort of how I normally think about it is white fruits normally come from the spirit. Darker fruits, red fruits, they're often carried by the wood, and if it's going to be wood, it'll be the Oloroso sherry wood normally. What is that cat doing?
Scratching,
going on some sort of a journey. Yes. Never mind. We'll ignore it once again. And so that's my that's how I quantify fruits really in the whiskey. And so this being white fruit dominated, I think that's probably coming from the spirit. And so we are dealing with very, very little, I think, sherry wood here. But the flavour will tell us more. So it's 43%. I don't know if we mentioned that already. So we won't be putting too much water in here.
Oh, that's a good... It's verging towards the sweeter end of the Speyside spectrum, but still dominated by pears, apples, fruit wax. A little nuttiness. I'm getting hazelnuts and almonds myself.
No, only 43%. That's got a lot of pep.
Yeah.
The spirit is very, very fresh in there.
Presumably chill filtered.
I should think chill filtered because just that low strength. I mean, we'll find out if we put a drab of water in, but I would be quite astonished if they could get away with a 43% whiskey unchill filtered that wasn't clouding up. But anyway, yeah, like again, really, really typical and quite beautifully so. Speyside characters there. The apples, pears, a little bit of sort of light strudel going on. a little bit of sponge and
a little
pastry.
bit of cinnamon dusted fruit, apple pie, maybe.
Very, very light touch from the vanilla, and from the wood generally, I think. There's only a little bit of cask influence here. I'm still thinking bourbon, but now I'm thinking it's quite old, quite well worn bourbon. I think probably second fill here. It's very spirit driven, but because of the age, it's quite substantially so.
I'm going to cling, perhaps irrationally, to the belief that there is at least some sherry influence in here, if not possibly quite a lot of the refill. The degree of fruitiness and the complexity of it speaks to me of sherry maturation. Again, could be wrong. Happy to be told if I am wrong, because I like to learn.
I think there's going to be scarce information about this. We'll probably never truly know. But no, my thoughts are bourbon because of the nature of the fruits rather than the quantity of them in there. This is quite interesting in that we've tried fairly recently. I think it was was it a 12-year-old Glen Ord by Douglas Lang, single cask there. That was a massively spirit-driven whiskey, but because it was a wee bit younger, it was just a little bit, maybe a bit flimsy. Now, neither of us really liked it all that much. It was perfectly refreshing and light and so on, but it just didn't have a lot of substance there. This, I think, is similarly spirit-driven, but that extra bit of age that it's got on it, and maybe a little bit more wood influence than that particular Glen
It's
Ord
got a few
did.
layers of curiosity and a bit of just a fruit bowl on the side.
Those flavours are just so much more substantial. So it has this sort of youthful vibrancy going on, but there's meat on the bones at the same time, which I think is quite important for how I enjoy whiskey anyway.
Adding some water there I've been very cautious with water. I don't want to lower the strength too far. It's not an especially heavy body to begin with. I don't want to render it undrinkably insipid and watery. But what it's done is it's given a little bit of an edge. There's a bit of sharpness, a little bit of bite there. It's dulled some of the sweetness, but expanded the range of what I'm tasting, and it's good improvement.
It certainly hasn't done it any harm. It's even softer now, even fruitier than it was, and there is just a slight bitter undertone coming through now, which you sometimes get when you put water with a whiskey that's quite light and sweet to begin with. But
a little bit of like a buttery short crust pastry.
There is a bit of pastry in there. I actually really like this.
Yeah.
I try to be fairly equal opportunity in terms of whiskies that I like and that I don't. But what I like consistently is whiskies that are very true to their style. And that's not to say that they should try to, if they're in Speyside, they should try to make a Speyside whiskey. It's that if they're trying to make a Speyside character, no matter where they are in Scotland, they should, the more accurately they hit that mark, they hit that sort of Speyside bullseye, the more I tend to like them. And as an example of that, I would use Arran. Couldn't really be further from Speyside. They're way out on the islands. They're closer to Ireland, they're closer to Talisker than they are to Speyside, and yet they make one of the most beautifully typical Speyside styles out there, and that's what I really enjoy. I like a good sort of strength of character and identity in the whiskey, and this one really has it in spades. So scores for this one I actually really enjoy. This one's a 90 from me, a real out of the blue stunner from me, this one here. I just wish it was maybe a more available whiskey, but it is now on my radar if I see any more bottles floating around. What do you think?
This one earns an 88 from me. It has such a clear, defined Speyside character. It delivers all of the Speyside qualities in spades, but doesn't overwhelm the palate. It's still delicate and light, not excessively so. It's just a perfectly balanced, yet forceful Speyside. And the fact that we know so little about it, and there's relatively little information even on the sum of all human knowledge on the internet, means that it's pleasantly beguiling and a bit of a mystery. We're not coming in loaded with preconceptions.
Certainly the first Glentauchers, heading back to phonetics now, Glentauchers,
yes.
That I've tasted, knowingly anyway. I'm sure I've drunk plenty of it in the many blends that it graces, but yeah, no, I'm quite surprised and pleased by this one, so that's always a good thing to be.
Again, if you know more about what I've been drinking, what's gone into it, how old it might be,
any Glentauchers experts in there,
please do make the comments.
Post up, let us know. We're always in to learn a wee bit more. Yes. But at any rate, we will get on to something else very shortly and be right there with you then. Slanger,
Slanger.
I'm going to find out what that jolly cat is doing, and then that cat is going to pay. I hope that wasn't coming up on the microphone.